Hello, everyone. Thank you for visiting my channel, Educational Norm. I work as an educational consultant, which means that I have the opportunity to interact and visit with many teachers across Ohio and beyond. Those interactions have driven me to tell their stories and their ideas on education. The goal of Educational Norm is to provide an informational network that focuses on positive aspects of education, the people preparing students for the future of our world. Join us each week for a new interview, and please subscribe and share the channel with others that you think may enjoy the program. Thank you and enjoy the show. Hello, everyone. Today we have Michael King, the current principal at Geneva High School in Geneva, Ohio, and a former colleague of mine from Twinsburg City Schools. Michael also has a background as a board member way back in the day at Nordonia Hills. We're not old, Michael. We are just experienced.
I like that.
Yes, we are experienced members. So, welcome to the show, and I appreciate you taking time. I know it's your first day back at school after break, and it's never easy getting back into the swing of things, but you figure might as well just do it all in one shot, huh? Just all in one day.
If you're going to be busy, just stay busy.
I like that. So I gave a little bit of your background, but obviously that's not nearly your educational background. If you could take us from the time you got your first job until where you're at now with the different roles you've been in. I knew you as an assistant principal and obviously had a lot of connections to the community out there. But tell me about your journey through education so far.
Okay. I'll go one step back real quick. Prior to getting into education, I was in finance banking for 7 years. Um, and of course, I knew I really wanted to be in education. I wanted to make a difference. I wanted to help um, students find their way. Um, my dad constantly talked about education being the great equalizer. Get a good education, you can do anything you want, which was very important to him. We came from a very middle class background, so he wanted, he wanted me able to find my way through education to go in any direction I wanted, and that got instilled in me. And I believe I did pretty well at the bank, but when I would go home at night, there just wasn't that fullness, if you will, that feeling like I had contributed something. So I then went back, got my teaching license. I taught with Nordonia for 11 years, absolutely loved it. Um, Coached anything they asked, probably a few things I shouldn't have. That was before Google. And yeah, I'll figure out how to do that. But it worked. It worked. It didn't lose anybody. And we actually had a few successful seasons in different sports. Um, like you mentioned, from there, I became assistant principal at Twinsburg at Chamberlain Middle School. Absolutely loved my time there. I learned an incredible amount, especially your first um, district outside where you're taught. You're able to see things so much differently and say, okay, now I understand why we did this, and I understand why they're doing that because the communities are different, the roles are different. It was very eye opening, and I'm very lucky to have that experience. Um, from there, I went on to Berkshire High School, where I was building principal, grades 7, 12, more of a rural setting. Greatly enjoyed that. Also was in charge of curriculum. Um, was there through COVID, which of course taught me just an incredible amount of lessons in education, in humanity, empathy, sympathy, etc. Um, wow, yeah, that seems
Yeah.
like forever a day ago, but it wasn't that long ago. Um, and while there and other places, I was interim head of other departments. From Berkshire, North Ridgeville gave me a call and asked if I'd help them consolidate some buildings into one operational structure. More than happy, I went over there and helped them out with that. And I was building principal of a 3-8 building, 2,100 students. Um, just a phenomenal introduction to elementary education and the greater role how that sweep of education plays 3-8. Because for the longest time I had seen high school and a bit of middle school, 7-8, but then to be able to get that sweep down to third, wow, that was transformative for me. The understanding of how it all works together, because it's not just, and I don't want to I don't want to demean anyone who, maybe goes from high school to the board office, but yes, you can see it from that board office purview, but being in the trench as a building administrator, that's your day. That's all you every day. And it was a great experience for me to better understand that. Um, when time came to move on, I landed here at Geneva as building principal. It's a great building with an amazing staff, and the community has been with us at every turn. Everything that we've ever asked of them, anything that we've engaged on has been just tremendous.
Well, and that's my alma mater, so I hold that dear to my heart. You don't grow up in Geneva without thinking that it's a special place. So I was very happy when you took that role because I knew that you would be great for the school and the district. You brought up a lot of things that were eerily similar to one of the interviews I've already done with the teacher in Tennessee. She was in finance for 7 years and decided that it wasn't fulfilling what she thought should be. And she went in and started subbing first and then ended up, doing the teaching route. And she's been doing it now for 5 years and absolutely loves it. Um, so I thought, wow, how freaky is that? That was my last interview, and now I have another one, same exact thing. I think that one of the things that also stood out was your time at Berkshire. When you're in a small school district like Berkshire is, you're asked to do so many things, just out of necessity because you just don't have the people. So from going from a building assistant principal in Twinsburg, where that was your sole responsibility, and that's not easy being an assistant principal in any school district. But then how does that compare to holding multiple roles in a new school like Berkshire?
The story or just the phrase that I always share with people, it was at Twinsburg, I could pick up the phone and dial up several different people, including yourself, the various departments, the various groups that were around in the community. But then when I got to Berkshire, if I picked up the phone and I wanted any of those people, I was calling myself.
Yeah.
So if you didn't know about something, you had to learn quick. John Stoddard, great superintendent. I learned an incredible amount from him, but he was it at the board office, and God bless him. We had other buildings, we had a bond issue that first year. He had a lot on his plate, and so and again, I wanted to be able to show what I could do. So there was a huge learning process for the different systems that I didn't know by that point. Um, but it helped me grow just immensely. Um, there's a lot to be said for both larger and smaller school districts. Um, I like getting to know people in depth. I like that communication, that understanding as to why people do what they do and how it works and how to build a great team. And to me, that can come at any size district. But if you want that kind of relationship with your students, smaller is probably more of where it's at because you can have more time for each individual student.
I've worked in both myself, and it is very rewarding on either end of the spectrum, but it's a very different type of approach that you're able
Yes,
to take because of what is needed at the time. So I think that experience really helps you in the role that you're in now as well, because you are in charge of a building, but knowing Geneva and some of the trials and tribulations over the last few years, that experience comes in so valuable to what you do on a daily basis.
absolutely. I'm thankful for everything that I've learned to do and not to do. I'd love to say I got everything right the first time, but nobody's Superman.
No, you never, no, there's no way you get it right on the first time unless you were very lucky or you had a great support system to help you through it. But when you are just trying to learn the basics of something, because I don't even know what that system is. Let's
Right.
start from square one. And I know you relied on your network. You know people from various districts. How important is networking in your role or your roles that you've had over the last, 24 years?
My phone has more contacts than I could possibly even begin to think about, just because, again, I rely on relationships. That's who I am. I enjoy being with people, around people, learning from people, and when you find those people, you know, it's you don't want to let them go because A, hopefully you've developed a good friendship with them, but B, there's always a way that we could help each other out. I am more than happy to share whatever I might know to help folks, but at the same time,
Mrs. Markajon, please call extension 4000.
we're
It's
still
all
going.
good. It's
Yep.
it's cool.
Absolutely. And in return, I always have questions. Hey, have you ever worked with? Hey, have you done? And again, Geneva is not exactly the smallest district I've ever worked in, but I still have to do quite a few extra things than most high school principals would do. So when there's something that maybe I haven't come across before, I'm able to pick up that phone and say, I think you've experienced this. How did it look like there? And then I'm able to, okay, let's Genevaize it and see if we can make it work here for me and go forward. And if it doesn't work, you learn from that and then you try again.
Exactly. And those connections are so valuable when you really are just trying to learn the process because they've made mistakes that you can learn from so you don't have to.
And I think coming from
Brian
business.
Martinez, please report to the office immediately. Brian Martinez, please report to the office immediately.
I think
Immediately.
coming from business, what I really enjoy now in education is in business, when you called somebody and said, hey, what do you think about or how about? Most of the time, the other person had a thought as to, okay, what's in this for me? But in education, that is almost never the case. It's, okay, how can I help? Because it all goes back to the kids. It all goes back to helping a child get the future of their choice. So it's, people are willing to share anything they have in education. I think that is what makes it so remarkable.
Well, I think it was summed up best, and I wish I could remember which superintendent I heard say this. He was talking about a college and career readiness program. And he said, I'm happy with the work that I do with my kids in my district, but I want this to be in every district because if I'm on I-71 in Columbus, 200 miles from home, and there's no EMTs that have been trained properly because they didn't go through my program, it doesn't help me. So I need everybody to be good. And I like that idea that we are here to share ideas and to share these kids, no matter if they're in our district or not. We're still
Absolutely.
helping, do that next generation. So in Geneva, what does your typical day look like? Well, let me rephrase that. What does a normal day look like? And I'll put typical in quotation marks because I know it's never typical.
But I am one of those that likes to get there as early as possible. As anybody in education, whether it's custodian, teacher, lunch lady, secretary, anybody, superintendent, they will all tell you the same thing. Your day is yours until that first person hits the door. As soon as that first person hits the door, you just get on that roller coaster and see what happens. So I'm usually in around 6. Just, make sure that I'm as organized as possible for the day. Any phone calls that need return, any emails that may have come up through the night, make sure staffing is okay. Thankfully, here in Geneva, we're pretty well covered most days, which is fantastic. And then, of course, as folks roll in, talk with them as they are. I do enjoy that my office is directly adjoining the mailroom. Some folks, oh, yeah, you're not going to like where that office is. It's, you're going to want to pick a different office. No, because the more you engage and the more you talk, again, those relationships develop. Usually by about 7:15, I am either out with the buses or I'm in the cafeteria with the walkers. Just, hey, how's your morning? What does it look like? Make sure you got everything done. Is there something you need help with? Or chatting it up with the teachers or talking with the girls basketball team about their game the night before. Again, just having that contact in that time is pretty cool. You learn so much more when the students aren't sitting in their classroom from them, like attending the basketball games or going to the plays. I love seeing the other sides of students. Yes, I greatly enjoy the students and what we teach. And how they learn and grow from it. But, education isn't just all what we're teaching in the classroom. It's, are they being the best person that they can be? Are they using their skills that they were given to rise and grow and challenge themselves, hopefully in the classroom, absolutely, but also on the playing field, in the court, or in the academic challenge, or on the stage, etc. So then, of course, classes start. I drop in a whole mess of classes, whether it's a walkthrough or not. I love to be where the action is. Offense is so much better than defense, because that way, if there's a phone call, oh yeah, I remember that lesson. I was able to, be in there for a few minutes, and this is what I saw, I took part in. You know, work with the custodian. Maybe there's a leak like there was this morning. A little bit of snow and ice, so causes a little havoc here and there. Talk with lunch ladies, ask them how their break was. Lots of moving around. If you ask anybody that I've ever worked with and you say, okay, what do you know about it? All of them will always say he's always on the move. There's never a day where I really sit still. And this is probably the longest I sat all day right here, right now.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. And then, of course, if there's any observations that need done, any phone calls that need to be made, any reports that need run, parent meetings, do some research to see if there's any grants, etc. And then, of course, end of the day hits, bell rings, wave the kids by, and then check the calendar one more time, and then see what's coming up. Like tonight, we got girls basketball at home. Pretty excited about that. Again, I like to see them inside the classroom, and things that they believe they're really good at, or you go to the county fair and watch a horse, or etc. It gives you a greater, we always talk about depth of knowledge. It gives you a greater depth of knowledge as an educational leader or teacher or custodian or whoever you are in a district. Getting to know the kids in their world, oh my gosh. And it also gives you a lot more credibility with them, that you took the time, that you're willing to understand. Because we all know, I don't know, Norm, if you ever had a bad day, but in education, I probably had a couple. And your hope for that empathy from the students, well, if you have that relationship, you give it to them and they give it to you. You really don't even have to ask most days. And that is just amazing. And especially in a school like this, these guys here are truly a family, and they live it. You can see it in what they do and how they act on a daily basis.
I noticed that when I came in for our professional development, the staff was really about the kids. They were focused on how can I make it better, and the attention that they were giving and the questions they were asking made it very evident that they were definitely a huge part of that growth process with the kids. And for those that aren't from the area, when you mention a leak in the roof, my mind immediately goes to Ashtabula, where they lost their whole high school. So I'm sure that was going through your mind, like, oh no, was this the start of something similar for us? But to have a whole high school be off limits. Wow.
Yeah. Before break, myself and one of my teachers, we took treats over there because at that point they were moving into one of the elementaries to try to restart school, hopefully, this week. And just what they were going through. You're never going to find that in how to be a superintendent, how to be a principal, how to be anything. That's not in the book. But those folks, with their dedication and persistence to their mission to get kids back in school into some sort of semblance of consistency and family, wow, I was absolutely impressed. It was as if they had done it before. And of course, they hadn't. Right. But just the energy, and everybody had that single mind focus. All the different custodians were in that building trying to reshape it. So, larger students, because it was an elementary building, so larger students could come in, be comfortable, and find a surrounding that made them want to be there. I give them incredible kudos for that.
Well, so with that being said, going back to the COVID, that experience that you had at Berkshire, we were in the same boat there. We just had to come up with solutions. It didn't really matter what was really needed. We knew that the kids were the priority, and how do we function to make sure the kids get what they need.
Yes.
What were the steps that you took at Berkshire during that time to, get those kids involved in education again? Because I remember being on Thursday going, "Hey, we're not coming back Monday, so get
Right.
ready."
Every conversation that we had was, how do we make it about them to keep them interested? Because it's going to be so easy. You talk about whether kids have ADD, etc., naturally in a classroom or naturally in a school setting. Well, imagine if they're doing their class in their room, or they're doing it in their living room and they have brothers and sisters, or there's the television. So how can we make this as engaging as possible? And then, of course, as I'm saying that, I'm having to try to do the same thing for my teachers so that they're as engaged as possible, because they have themselves and their families to get through this viral, global situation that we weren't sure about. But then every day they were going to be face to face with students through the screen and trying to encourage them to learn and go forward. And as I was doing that, I was in the basement of my house as my kids were upstairs with my wife trying to keep their schooling going. That was a three-ring circus for everybody. And I give a lot of credit to the teachers, the aides, principals, the students, and the parents. I loved the comments I was seeing on social media about, wow, this is a lot harder than I thought it would be. Okay. I don't want to say I have the hardest job in the world, but I think people got a little bit more of an understanding just where education is at today than it was when we were in school.
Right. Well, and that was something else that we mentioned, that if that would have happened in the 80s, it would have been a very different issue because we didn't have the technology available. But I think that mindset of we will find solutions will help Lisa and the other people in Ashtabula determine what is best for their kids and act appropriately. And it's not a reaction, it's an action that's thoughtful and again, keeping the kids in mind. So I think that's great.
I'm helping them with some gym space so that they can host some home basketball games. Unfortunately, they're not even able to do that. And they would like to at least come to a place they know a little bit better, maybe than other places, and something that at least gives them a feel.
Right. Yeah, that's not easy.
We can.
Yeah, it's not easy.
What you do, but it's what we should do.
No, it is what we do, but not everybody does it. It's we work with people that have done that, and it's good to see, and it's good to work with those people. And I think another good point that you raised is just the relationships you have to build to be an effective educator, putting the student as a person first and a student second. And I think that's a huge part of being able to be successful with today's kid.
Oh, absolutely. You take a look at any of the staff or any of the students, I have no idea where they left to come here. What was there that they left and what they're entering as they come here. And I never want to presuppose. So, a lot of empathy, a lot of energy, a lot of good listening skills, and I'll do whatever I can to help and get them the best education possible.
So let's take you back in time a little bit. Think about your first year of teaching. How have you evolved and changed since that first year of stepping in the classroom, coming especially from a financial background? What was that first classroom like to how it's evolved to now?
I would give myself a big old finger shake if I could. Like, oh my gosh, what are you thinking? I might even go so far as to say those first year kids, they might deserve a refund. I had the relationship piece, absolutely, because I believe that's just who I am. But my differentiation skills weren't there. One voice, one mind, one assignment, one assessment, very industrial. Thankfully, I worked with a great group of folks at Nordonia, and the students were very understanding, and I was able to break through that pretty quick. I would say probably by the end of my second year, I was able to differentiate a lot more, not only in my instruction, but in my assessments. And then by the end of my teaching career there, with 11 years time, I don't know that I became a master at it, but I wanted to be able to assess where the kids were able to shine, not just, you know, regurgitate an answer, but show me that they understood it. Why were we learning this? Why is it important? And why does it affect your future? You know, get that back to me instead of just writing down, okay, you know, the president lives in the White House. No,
Right.
not good enough. Not good enough.
Right.
So yeah, it was.
Bill Flesha, if you're in the building, could you please stop in the office? Bill Flesha, if you're in the building, please stop in the main office.
It was quite an evolution, and I still learn things every day. I have phenomenal staff here that when I go in a classroom, I was like, oh wow, I should have done that. Yeah, it's you never stop learning, and you're like, oh man, wow, that person, did you see that? Oh, I got to write that one down. And thankfully, you know, again, like I mentioned, education is always about sharing. I've yet to meet anyone that says, no, you can't do that in your building or in your classroom. They're like, oh, here. And I got it here and I bought the parts here and this is what it looks like. Do you want me to send you that file? I can send you that file.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
everybody wants what's best.
Right. So what is going on in your building right now that you would point to saying that's a practice that I wish everybody could see?
Well, like you had mentioned, Geneva is very close-knit and the relationships are just central to what we do. And we're taking that and tying it into our assignments. And from my background, I've been bringing in project-based learning. And so that way we're able to get the standards across to the students, make it authentic into something that they want to do because the staff, they know their kids. Hey, I know Johnny really likes to be outdoors. He really likes to hike. How can we make this real for him? Okay, Johnny, is there a place where you hike that, you know, you can't get across a stream, a creek, and you need a bridge, and what would that look like to design this bridge, etc. Make it your math project. How can we design it? What's needed? What's necessary? And the teachers have really started absorbing that quite a bit. Many of them were doing things that were very close, maybe not using the PBL lingo necessarily, but they're doing things very close. And so now it's starting to get nice and tight and they're using a lot of the same words. So it carries from class to class. That's very exciting. We are redesignating some classrooms so that we can get much deeper into STEM. We are doing what we can. We were a little bit limited when I first got here on technology, but we've made some purchases that have greatly helped. And I'm going through the grant process to get some other equipment so that we can keep taking the next steps to where I think our students want to be and what their skills would allow them to do well.
I think the idea, the PBLs and STEM will go over very well with your student population. What percentage of your kids go to ATEC?
We're breaking records each year. And I was having a conversation with some students today. If I could go back, I would be an ATECer. I would go to ATEC, get that skill, use that skill, pay for college, possibly combine what I learned from ATEC and the college, you know, get myself a nice small business, etc. We are, I want to say, around 85 students go. You know, junior, senior, few, they do have a sophomore program. We do have a few sophomores that take part in that as well. But the year before I got here, I know the numbers, and the numbers to this date, we are continuing to climb. And, you know, I always, you know, look over the fence, and if somebody's not using a seat, I ask if, hey, can I have that seat for one of my kids because he wants that program? Can we make that happen? And ATEC has been incredible about sharing. Their growth has just, I don't know if it caught them by surprise, but it's very exciting for them. And they have, with the new additions and whatnot that they're putting on, there's a lot of excitement going on at ATEC. They have a lot of good programs. And every time I go there, I always learn something new. Very exciting time over there.
You just said you have sophomores going, and I always thought one of the biggest issues in the schools that I was in, we would take our eighth graders out to show them ATEC, and then 2 years later, hey, let's try it now. And I was like, so there has to be something between eighth grade and 10th grade that we can do. So what are you doing with the sophomores? What kind of programs are they allowed to do?
That's where they get the basic entry pieces of what vocational training, vocational schooling will be. The idea of a work lab, the measurements, the different tools, etc. And they run through that process. For some of them, they are able to start their program earlier if it doesn't involve, like cosmetology. You can't, because again, there's medical licensing, et cetera, that goes along with it. But there are a couple programs that they offer where they're able to get in that first year, because then as juniors, they're then able to do the testing, et cetera, to show their proficiency within that skill. In a perfect world, I would love if there would be vocational classes more. Here we still offer a woods lab, we still have a kitchen lab, etc. And our kids blow it out of the water every single time. Even the kids who think, oh, I've never worked with a piece of wood in my life, by the end of the semester, they're incredibly proud with everything that they've made. It goes back to PBL. If you make it about something they're interested in, give them the opportunity to create an artifact that shows what they've learned. I promise, and Norm, I know you pretty well. I don't think you have your 8th grade science test on your refrigerator, but somewhere in your house, you have an art project from your schooling. Mm-hmm. I know you do. Almost everybody does, because it took your energy to create it, and it's something that you invested time in, something that you're proud of. Our kids, when they do a project in woods, or when they come up with a great PBL project, that's a lot of time invested, and the artifact can be incredible by the time they're done. That's why I enjoy project-based learning so much. It allows the students to shine in their own way. It allows the students to show what they know, and they're able to walk away with that artifact that shows, I've really learned this. I didn't just memorize a fact. This is what I was able to create. And again, the blooms, boom, here, this is what I have for you.
Right. I was very happy that when I came there, I heard that you still had those industrial shops and things that a lot of schools abandoned way back in the day because that wasn't what we needed anymore. And to see a team of teachers there that were invested in that is phenomenal. And it brought back memories from when I was there trying to make my wooden maze, which I failed miserably. And we made ashtrays in school, which I think is pretty funny. I think we did a little offshoot with roach clips also, which I still can't believe we got away with, but we had them, and we made vases. So, I mean, and that was in 7th or 8th grade, and we got to then graduate into the next program if we wanted to. Based on my success of the maze, I did not progress into the next level. I was very poor at my skills. But those programs, again, because of the push with the state, is going to be a huge piece of what you're able to offer. So I'm sure there's money out there for it. You just have to, like you said, find the grants that are going to be available. So that is actually a perfect segue into the role that the state plays in what you do on a daily basis. You taught me more in our walk and talk when we were doing the politicking for our levy in Twinsburg about the importance of the politician in our education system. We talked the whole time about it, but more importantly, the role that the government plays in how we operate on a daily basis is just having a depth of understanding, again, using the same one, of how that's going to impact what and how we do things. So what currently is going on in the state of Ohio in the legislature and in the government bodies that are out there? Because I'm sure you're on top of it. I'm throwing this out on a prayer because we didn't talk about this before. But what's going on at that level that we should be aware of as educators?
I think there's a lot of movement that's going to come, with the term limits and whatnot. We're having new legislators come in all the time. We have a new one that's going to be representing our area here. Thankfully, he has been a very good friend of the schools in his prior role as county auditor. Just always around, always had time for the students, always had time for questions. When it was time for him to present at our board meetings, he was here. He was not a, here's your award or here's this conversation and then out. He stayed, he was a part of it. So we're pretty thankful for that. In education, as we've seen, anything can happen. We have gone with the different rules about not being able to have a cup of coffee on a desk. We have had rules of how we are supposed to allude to God, but not mention God or possibly mention God. The state has taken us in a lot of different ways. And I think it'll be interesting to see where the state goes with this new legislature that's being sworn in. There's hopefully more, the state budget, the fair funding program has done many schools a lot of good. It has helped middle to smaller districts, average income to those less fortunate. It's leveled the playing field a bit. Again, yes, folks can still pass a levy, still pass a bond issue, and build whatever they want or make things better by their own property taxes. Every time I want to think about, okay, what's the state going to do next? I'm usually wrong, and then they usually come back with something that I go, didn't think of that one. But in almost everything they have ever done, in my heart of hearts, I truly do believe in there is the belief that it will benefit children. So as long as that continues, I'm okay.
Well, I hope at some point we get the funding models correct and we can fund schools the way they need to be funded. I know it's been a long road, and just because I've been in districts that have fallen into financial hardships, it's just hard to watch when you don't know exactly what's going to happen from year to year and where the funding is going to be coming from, or what are we going to get this year? I don't, that's the part that have always been frustrating to me is I don't know what I can plan for sometimes because I'm reliant on this model. And if that changes, then I'm in trouble. Has Geneva benefited from the recent funding changes or not?
We've been doing fairly well financially. There's an income tax that we're fortunate to have on the books. The fair funding model helped us out a bit. We have been doing everything we can to be good stewards of the dollars here. We make sure that our money is targeted for specific purposes, to make sure it's not a one-shot deal, that there is a reason that it's being spent, and that it's not a one-hit wonder.
Mm-hmm.
That shiny pamphlet theory doesn't play here. We have to make sure how we're spending the money is going to work long-term, that it's an investment in a process that we believe in, that we can take back to the voters if and when necessary and say, hey, you granted us with this, here's how it worked, let us show you, come on in. And again, going back to that PBL idea of artifact, let us show you what we've been able to do.
And it's sort of a catch-22 because as educators, I've always been very proud of all the schools I work for because they are financially responsible and they do make good choices. But if you show that you need more money, but you still are being successful with the money that you have, then they go, well, you're already doing okay. Why do you need more? but that's what we do. We take what we're given and we do the most that we can with it to be successful. And that looks different in every district. That's what we have to do.
And like you had just mentioned, no matter what we do, our costs will always continue to increase, where our bottom line is flat.
Right.
So, salt for the parking lot, plows for the parking lot, etc. Those aren't getting cheaper.
Right.
We want to make sure that we have what we need to operate safely and give our kids the best choices possible, the best technology that we can afford. It's going to cost some money.
Well, but I think what it really comes down to, and you've alluded to this several times, it's the people in the building. All that other stuff, if we have no money, which obviously won't happen, but if we had no money, the teachers will still teach really, really well because that's who they are. And
Yes.
that's the important piece. It's the people, so we got to take care of the people that take care of the kids. Awesome. So right now, with what you see with our kids on a daily, with your kids on a daily basis, what's going to be the next step for you in Geneva and also for Geneva in general? What are you looking forward to in the future of your educational pathway and for Geneva's?
Well, we are working incredibly hard to expand our course offerings for next year. Again, making courses that are applicable for what our students want as they're about to venture out. More tech-driven classes, more application-driven classes, marketing. Quite a few folks, as you know, are getting more and more into social media and the opportunities that presents. Okay, so what does it look like? What does marketing look like? What does graphic design on social media look like? Things of that nature. We're also trying to make sure that we have courses that are of interest, that not only are they going to understand technology, but hopefully it will get them to the idea of, okay, this technology doesn't exist. How can I use what I've learned and start cobbling that? How, building it in together. So we are advancing quite a bit into technology, quite a bit into STEM. We have repurposed some areas of the building to try to give some lab space for that type of growth, making sure that we have the right personnel in those positions to make sure, like you had mentioned, that the people that are in there, even if they know what they're teaching and they know how it works, but they're still hungry to make it better, more interesting. Okay, well, what's the next step? And get those kids hungry and interested in that same idea, that the process will take off. So opening up our courses, making sure that the kids have courses that they're interested in, because, as you know, there's CCP courses, there's other different opportunities that are out there for our students to go other places. But we believe that Geneva is good and strong enough that if we continue offering relevant courses, we want to make it a place that people aren't going to want to leave, that they're going to want to stay here, get a quality education, whether they're talking about employment, enlistment, entrepreneurship, or enroll in secondary, that this is the place that's going to get them there. And with the energy of the staff that we have and the kindness of the community, I don't think that there's a whole lot we couldn't do, as long as we keep that focus on our vision of making sure that every child gets a future of their choice.
And it's a career by choice, not by chance. And if you give them that opportunity and the exposure, that's the big part of it. And in being involved, as you well know, I'm involved in college and career readiness programs for basically my whole time at Twinsburg. One of the things that I noticed is that a lot of kids just don't even know what's out there. And
exactly.
And we can't prepare them for the future really, really well because some of those jobs don't exist yet. So we have to work with kids to allow them to be curious and willing to look at things and take chances and things that are not curricular issues, but more of a personality piece, that if you want to see what's out there and you're willing to think, we can get you a job. It's one of those, we didn't know what a drone pilot was 10 years ago. but now that's something that's becoming very popular. So how do you train kids for the future when you don't know what it holds? Just train them to be resilient and to think and to
Yes.
be a good collaborator. Those are huge things.
And the the other the other big piece of that, at least to me, is as teachers, and I was guilty of this quite a bit, and especially with my own children, you don't want to let them fail. Don't touch, don't do, stop, you're gonna, but, and it took me a while, especially with my own kids. Sometimes when it's safe, you have to let them fail. That's where you learn the most. It's where you become the student that eventually can become a teacher or eventually the master. One of my favorite failure stories wasn't a failure, but failure story goes back to an incredibly wise teacher that I got to know in my time at Berkshire with PBL. And the teacher had come to me towards the end of the year and just was down, just, oh my gosh, I had never seen this teacher just so down. Teacher's face was almost inconsolable. Started talking to the teacher, and the teacher went through all the ways the PBL had failed. This, and I had to try this. I had to go get this. The kids had to figure out this, and oh my gosh, it was just a disaster. And I looked at the teacher and I said, "Wait a minute, I heard everything that you just told me, but you learned from all of this." He goes, "Well, that's why we had to go get this, because then we needed to fix and we figured it out." I said, "Then help me understand how this was a failure. It just didn't happen the way you thought. It eventually worked and you got it into some semblance of what you're aiming for. But, you know, especially with the kids, you go out and you shoot hoops with kids in the gym and you miss a basket. Okay, yeah, you're human. You're not going to make everyone. If we made everyone, you wouldn't be, teaching. You'd be out there with LeBron. But when you get in there with them and you show them your excitement and you show them what you're willing to do, that truly drives the educational process. And for the students to understand that it's okay to not be 100% right and to be able to regroup and try again, that resilience, that it can get them through almost anything in life. Some folks will say grit, resilience, whatever word you choose. That idea that you just keep trying, keep going forward. You look at some of the world's greatest inventions, it's because people just didn't give up.
Right. Right. Well, and on top of that, one of the things that I learned through our work in Twinsburg with the college and career readiness and some work with other schools that are also developing different programs, the teachers also have to be given the tools to be able to do the right thing in that regard. And when we took teachers in Twinsburg and in Independence, when we did that onto site visits to these different workplaces, they were all just blown away by what they thought they knew about the industry versus what the industry really was. And you can't fault any person that's been in education their entire life for not knowing what it's like to work in a place of manufacturing or in a bank or anything of that nature. So we can't just let the teachers be the sole person of knowledge in that kind of field. That's where that community relationship, like you said, that tight knit community can come together and raise the child as one. It's a neat idea, and it's one I just love when it works. It's so much fun.
Oh, absolutely. And that in many of these corporations, it's absolutely perfect because they have R&D departments, research and development. You know what that means? Try and fail, and then we'll get it right.
Right.
None of these companies has a department of perfection.
I love that.
And I think we get that wrong so many times in education. We have to make it an okay idea to not get it your first try, but to stay in there and just keep swinging at it. You're going to get it. Okay, what did you learn from this? Okay, go back, implement what you just learned, try it again, see what happens.
Well, the other piece of that, when we took the teachers at Independence out to a lab where they made false teeth and false eyes, the work environment was not anything that they were prepared for, nor did they expect. So when they saw kids with their phones, and I call them kids, when these 20-year-olds were working, they had their phones watching SpongeBob and they were painting with their headphones on, just working away. And they had screens of people that were working from home, and they had other people that were there just singing and dancing, but they were still working, and everything was okay to do that as long as the work got done. And that's a very different approach than anything we ever see. And I think the same regard is when we have teachers that will say often, well, they're not going to let you get away with that at college. Well, have you been to college lately to see what they let you get away with? I mean, it's interesting that we get caught in a time period of what we believe is happening and we get stuck there. And that's why I think it's so
Mhm.
important to get your teachers the opportunity to also see these places. And they love it. They love the experience. They love the day to just learn from other people in a very different setting. So that's my advice. Yeah, I'm not doing it with you. If you want to do it, go ahead. But that's I think it's a great way to build that bridge for your community.
Absolutely. Um, in during my time at Berkshire, the Jogger Growth Partnership, great folks. They
Mhm.
established a workshop day for teachers and administrators to go throughout go throughout the county and tour many of the employers. And it was fantastic. Everybody from Great Lakes Cheese to a couple of the trucking companies to the sand and gravel, et cetera, and just seeing what it took to operate the different industry and then be able to say, you know what? I'm seeing Johnny with his skills being able to do that. Or Sarah, wow, she could rock that in a minute. Or, maybe they're encountering a problem. Wow, I got 6 kids I could put in a room, give them 4 days. I bet they get an answer for that. It puts you in touch. And I think, again, like you had said, that community engagement and knowing who is about you and how you can affect growth and that energy to make things happen. School districts and schools themselves are just kind of this engine of each community. And when you're in sync with that community and its business and its political leadership, you can make amazing things happen. And you're never going to agree all the time. But if the idea is there of education and individual growth, there's nothing you can't accomplish.
Totally agree. And it also helps the businesses get their next generation of workers the way they want them to be trained and ready to go. And it's a win-win for everyone. So I think honestly that's probably the next phase of education, getting more into those types of programming across the board. And our state's already done that by, combining the workforce department with the education department. So that whole idea is getting there. And your positive outlook on that, I think, is just going to be a huge benefit for Geneva.
I would have to give humongous props to Lieutenant Governor Husted and all of his work with CTE and making sure that the students who want to work in industry have the skills that they need, the opportunities, like you had mentioned, to go and see, go and understand where do I need to get myself to be able to get that position that I want and make sure that what I am doing for myself matters
Mhm.
instead of just sitting there and trying to take a note or figure out an equation, etc. No. There's your goal, and here's where you're at, and this is why this matters. You're getting to your goal. Um, he's led a lot of these CTE expansion programs, a lot of the community investment grants. Very appreciative of that. He is looking statewide and also regionally at what we all need to try to make the programming choices matter.
Right. And I think the consolidation of all the different programmings that existed prior to this entity are starting to come together little by little to see the bigger picture. It's not just me doing this. We have this whole conglomerate of people doing similar work. Let's get together and make this happen the best way possible.
Yeah, because again, it's like when you get three math teachers in the hallway. Oh, wow, you tried that? Oh, you got that? You got that? You know, businesses, the state agencies, boom. There's so much
Exactly.
more you can do.
Exactly. Well, I think that's such a positive ending. That will be our ending. I think that's a good place to stop. I want to thank you for your time. And anybody that's looking for more information about what's going on in Geneva or want to talk to Michael, you can contact me at norm@normpotter.com. You can subscribe to my channel at educationalnorm.com. I wish I said I came up with that name, but I didn't. Or you can visit my website, structuredcreativityconsulting.com. And until next time, be kind, be professional, and find solutions. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you for having me.